The desert highway stretched out in front of
Suspect is
Officer
heading
Sarah
northbound on
Jenkins
Highway
like a ribbon
101.
of emptiness. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a
Suspect
burnt
is heading
orange
northbound
sky.
on Highway
The
101.
faint hum of tires against the road was the only sound breaking the stillness of the night. But that
Suspect is
silence was
heading
shattered
northbound
by the
on Highway
crackle of the
101.
police radio. "This is Officer Sarah Jenkins. I'm on the 405 near
Suspect is
Sutter's
heading
Canyon.
northbound on Highway
We've got a
101.
code 8, possible vehicle breakdown. I'll investigate further." It should have been a routine call, nothing out of the ordinary. The call was logged, and Sarah knew the drill. Pull over, check on the vehicle, offer assistance if necessary. She'd done it 1,000 times. But little did she know that this call would lead her down a path that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Before we dive deeper into this mystery, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling true crime stories. The wind began to pick up as Sarah drove, her headlights cutting through the encroaching darkness. A red SUV came into view, abandoned by the side of the road. Its engine was still running. The front windows were down, and there was no sign of any driver or passengers. Sarah parked her cruiser behind the vehicle and grabbed her flashlight. She approached cautiously, shining the beam inside the car. Jack Montgomery's personal belongings lay untouched in the passenger seat: a camera, his backpack, and a couple of water bottles. But there was no sign of Jack. The first thing that caught her eye was the eerie stillness of it all. If someone had broken down, they usually left some kind of sign: a tire jack, tools, or even a phone call. But everything appeared calm. Too calm, in a way that made Sarah uneasy. She checked the surroundings for any sign of life. Nothing. As she moved further from the car, the ground beneath her feet began to change from gravel to soft earth. That's when she saw it. Drag marks. Not the kind you'd expect from someone dragging a suitcase. These marks were heavy, deep, and they seemed to trail off into the dense thicket of trees. Her heart skipped a beat. She radioed for backup, her voice trembling as she spoke. "This isn't just a vehicle breakdown. Something's happened here." Then, just as Sarah was about to take another step, a voice broke the silence. "Don't come any closer." It wasn't Jack's voice. It was deep, gravelly, almost a growl. Sarah froze in place, her flashlight trembling in her hand. She scanned the shadows, heart racing. She knew someone was out there, watching her. But the voice didn't speak again. A few seconds of suffocating silence followed before another voice, softer but just as chilling, echoed from the trees. "You're too late. He's already gone." Before she could respond or move, the voice faded into the dark, and she was left with only the sound of her breath, the distant rustle of leaves, and the sense that she was no longer alone. October 4th, 2001. It was a warm, dry evening when Jack Montgomery set out on his solo adventure. He was a 27-year-old from New York City, looking to escape the noise and chaos of urban life. The breakup with his longtime girlfriend had left him feeling hollow, and he needed time to heal, to reset. He'd taken a trip to Northern California to visit the famed Sutter's Canyon National Park. The quiet, expansive landscapes were exactly what Jack needed. His sister, Melissa Montgomery, had heard from him a few hours before his disappearance. She had received a brief text message from Jack: "I'm heading into Sutter's. Be back in the morning." Those were the last words she would ever receive from him. Melissa, worried by the lack of a return call, tried to reach her brother multiple times that evening, but there was no answer. When the sun rose the next day and Jack still hadn't called, she filed a missing persons report with the local authorities. They initially assumed Jack was just another lost hiker, perhaps delayed by the canyon's winding paths. They thought he'd return eventually. But after 24 hours had passed, their certainty wavered. Something didn't add up. By the time Officer Sarah Jenkins arrived on the scene, the investigation into Jack Montgomery's disappearance had already begun to spiral into something darker. The SUV, red and clearly out of place, had no visible damage. It wasn't as if Jack had been in an accident. The vehicle seemed intentionally left behind. No tire tracks, no indication of a struggle, just an abandoned car. Sarah's unease deepened as she discovered the drag marks leading off the road. They didn't seem random. The marks trailed through the rough underbrush, as if someone or something had been dragged from the car and toward the nearby forest. As Sarah took one cautious step after another, her flashlight revealed a disturbing new detail. The twigs and leaves disturbed as though someone had struggled to get away. The marks ended abruptly near the edge of the woods where the trail became too overgrown to continue. The deeper Sarah ventured into the woods, the more the hairs on her neck stood on end. Every branch that snapped under her boots felt like it could be the sound of someone else's approach. And then there was the voice, that warning from the shadows. "You're too late." Sarah knew at that moment that Jack wasn't lost. He had been taken. Someone had waited for him, watched him, and then abducted him. As Officer Jenkins continued her search, she couldn't shake the words that haunted her. "He's already gone." Jack Montgomery, a man who had simply been trying to escape his past, had vanished into thin air. As the hours passed and backup arrived, they scoured the surrounding area for any clue as to who might have been involved. But the more they looked, the more they realized someone was covering their tracks. The voice in the shadows? A warning, a threat. Something about this case was different, and as the team moved deeper into the forest, they found something chilling. A blood-stained jacket, not Jack's, discarded near the trees. But whose blood was it? And what did it mean for the investigation? The morning after Officer Sarah Jenkins discovered the blood-stained jacket near the woods, the investigation shifted into overdrive. The eerie stillness of the desert highway now felt heavy, as if the land itself was holding its breath. At the local police station, Sarah sat alone in the interrogation room, staring at the photographs of Jack Montgomery's abandoned red SUV. The images on her desk, illuminated by the harsh overhead light, were a chilling reminder that something far more sinister had occurred than anyone had initially believed. "The longer we wait, the more chance we lose," Sheriff Tom Harrington muttered as he entered the room, holding a stack of new files. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the deep concern that had been growing since the previous evening. Sarah took the files from him and flipped through them, her mind racing as she processed the growing complexity of the case. There had been no sign of Jack in the surrounding area, no tracks, no signs of forced entry. The car had been left untouched, except for the disturbing drag marks that led off the road and into the forest. Then, the photos in the files caught her attention. Grainy footage from a gas station security camera, a man in a black hoodie, head lowered, eyes darting nervously. He stood at the corner of the station, clearly waiting for something. Sarah leaned forward, her heart rate quickening. This man was far too large to be Jack. But the figure in the footage wasn't just someone passing through. He had been watching Jack for hours, possibly days. Sheriff Harrington leaned over Sarah's shoulder, his voice low. "Who is he asked. Sarah didn't have an answer yet, but she knew they had to find him. And fast. The footage from the gas station was the first tangible lead they had. The mysterious man in the black hoodie had appeared just hours before Jack's car was found. It wasn't just a random stranger, Sarah realized. This man had been following Jack. But why? The surveillance footage showed the man pacing nervously, looking over his shoulder every few seconds. Then, the camera caught him glancing toward Jack's car parked by the side of the road. It was clear. The man knew Jack's vehicle was there. Who was this person? And what was his connection to Jack? Sarah stared at the screen, watching the suspect. He didn't seem like a local, and the way he moved, tense, calculated, only added to Sarah's growing unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that this man had something to do with Jack's disappearance, and the search for him was now urgent. But there were no clear answers, no identifiable information in the footage. The man wore a thick hoodie and dark sunglasses, hiding his features. His face was shadowed in the grainy video, making it impossible to get a solid lead. And yet, something about his movements seemed familiar. As Sarah rewound the footage and played it again, she caught something odd. He seemed to glance toward the woods, directly where the drag marks began. He wasn't just passing through. He had been waiting for someone, for something. The breakthrough came on the 15th day of Jack's disappearance. David Klein, a local farmer, reported seeing a suspicious vehicle parked near the trailhead to Sutter's Canyon. The vehicle had been there for several days, concealed from view by thick brush and tall trees. This was a critical lead. It was a place Jack had mentioned in his last text to his sister. The trailhead wasn't far from where Jack's car had been found. Sarah and Sheriff Harrington led a small team to investigate. They moved cautiously through the brush, following the path that David Klein had described. When they arrived at the site, their stomachs sank. Another abandoned car. This time, it was a rusty blue sedan, far less conspicuous than Jack's red SUV, but just as abandoned. They circled it, eyes scanning for clues. Everything about the vehicle felt wrong, out of place. It wasn't until Sarah opened the passenger side door that the full weight of their discovery hit her. Inside the car, a jacket sat crumpled on the seat, stained with fresh blood. It wasn't Jack's blood. Her breath caught in her throat as she took a step back. This wasn't just a random encounter. This was personal. There was something more to this story. Whoever had taken Jack was careful, deliberate, and dangerous. The blood-stained jacket was just the beginning. As the investigation deepened, Sarah began to realize the connections were more than coincidental. The car, the jacket, the mysterious man in the hoodie, it was all leading to something far darker. And then came the call. Sarah stood frozen as she listened to the voice on the other end of the phone. It was an anonymous tip, a shaky voice whispering in fear. "You need to look at the old mill by the river near the canyon," the voice hissed. "The man in the hoodie? He's hiding something there." Was this their break? Could the mill hold the key to understanding why Jack Montgomery had disappeared without a trace? Sarah glanced at Sheriff Harrington, her stomach twisting with a sense of dread. They had no choice. The search was about to take a much darker turn. The next step in the investigation would lead them to the mill by the river, a place as old as the town itself, its decaying walls hiding secrets long buried. But what they found there would change everything. "We need to hurry," Sarah said, her voice filled with urgency. "We can't let him slip away now." The wind howled through the barren trees as Officer Sarah Jenkins and Sheriff Tom Harrington approached the old mill. The building stood like a silent sentinel in the darkness, its rusted iron beams and rotting wood a grim reminder of the past. There were no lights in the mill, just a thick blanket of shadow that swallowed the faintest hint of their flashlight beams. "This place gives me the creeps," Harrington muttered, his voice barely above a whisper as they crossed the overgrown path leading to the entrance. Sarah didn't respond. Her mind was elsewhere, focused on the tip that had led them here. They knew Jack Montgomery had been here, and they knew the man in the hoodie had something to do with it. But what had they stumbled upon in this abandoned mill by the river? As they reached the entrance, the air grew colder. Sarah stepped forward, pushing the heavy wooden door open. It creaked on its hinges, the sound echoing through the stillness. Inside, the air smelled of dampness, decay, and something darker. The floor was covered in dust, and the walls seemed to close in, hiding the mill's secrets in every dark corner. Sarah's flashlight swept the room, illuminating rusted machinery, cobwebs, and piles of old crates. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the sound of their footsteps. They had come too far to turn back now. Then she heard something. A soft shuffle, barely perceptible, but it was enough to stop her dead in her tracks. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her heart racing. Harrington didn't answer immediately. He raised his flashlight, scanning the room, his hand resting on the holster of his gun. The shuffle grew louder, closer. Someone was definitely in the mill. "We're not alone," Sarah muttered, a chill running down her spine. Suddenly, the soft shuffle became a distinct sound. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Before Sarah could react, a voice broke the silence, cutting through the tension. "I know you're here." It was low and rasping, full of menace. It was the voice Sarah had feared hearing for days, the voice of the man in the hoodie. Jonathan Markham. That was the name they had now. The man in the hoodie. He had been on their radar for days, but only now did they have enough evidence to bring him in. As Sarah and Harrington moved cautiously toward the back of the mill, they finally saw him, standing in the shadows, his face obscured by a hood. Markham's figure seemed to blend with the darkness, but Sarah could feel his eyes on her. He wasn't surprised to see them. It was as though he'd been waiting. "You're wasting your time," Markham said, his voice colder than the night air. "Jack's not here. You've already lost him." Sarah's pulse quickened as she stepped closer, trying to read the man's expression in the dim light. She knew he was hiding something. He had to be. "Where is he, Markham?" Sarah demanded, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Markham didn't respond immediately. Instead, he chuckled softly, the sound echoing eerily in the abandoned mill. "You don't get it, do you?" he said, his eyes glinting in the faint light. "You're too late. Jack wasn't just some tourist. He was part of something bigger." Sarah's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" Markham's smile was cold, twisted. "I didn't just take him for fun. I was helping him." At that moment, the pieces started falling into place. This wasn't just a random kidnapping. It wasn't even about Jack anymore. Markham had an agenda, and Jack had been just another victim caught in his twisted web. As Markham stood there, Sarah felt a wave of unease wash over her. She was only scratching the surface, but she could already tell that Markham was playing with her, toying with her emotions. He knew exactly how to manipulate her, how to push her buttons. "What did you do to him?" Sarah asked again, her voice sharper this time. Markham stepped forward, closing the distance between them. The cold air seemed to grow even colder, and the shadows seemed to deepen. He wasn't just any suspect. He was something far worse. "I helped him escape," Markham said quietly, "from his own mind." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure if he was toying with her or if he was being sincere. "Escape from his own mind?" she repeated, trying to make sense of the words. Markham nodded, his expression twisted. Jack was always searching for something. He thought his life was falling apart. He was ready to give up. So I showed him another way. Sarah was confused. "What way?" Markham's voice dropped to a whisper. "The perfect body, the perfect life. He was going to join me. Then he said something that would haunt Sarah forever. But he wasn't ready for the transformation. He couldn't handle it." Markham was arrested that night, but his cryptic words didn't sit well with Sarah. Transformation? The perfect body? What had Markham been doing to Jack Montgomery? As they carted him away, Sarah's eyes lingered on the shadows of the mill. She knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Just as Sarah turned to leave the mill, she spotted something that stopped her cold. a small, leather-bound journal lying on the ground near the door. It looked old, worn, and out of place. She picked it up, her heart racing as she opened the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Jack Montgomery's, but the words that followed were even more disturbing. "They're coming for me. I don't know if I can survive the change, but I have to. I have no choice." What had Jack been involved in? What had Markham done to him? Sarah knew one thing for certain. This case wasn't just about a missing man anymore. There were far darker forces at play here, and Markham's twisted motives were only the beginning. The truth was out there, hidden in plain sight, and the real story was only just beginning to unfold. The weeks following Jonathan Markham's arrest were a whirlwind. The town, which had once been so peaceful, was now filled with whispers and questions. Markham's cryptic words lingered in the air, haunting everyone involved in the case. Sarah Jenkins couldn't shake the feeling that there were still unanswered questions, dark truths hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. The investigation had taken an unexpected turn. What had begun as a simple missing person case had turned into a terrifying exploration of obsession, manipulation, and something much darker than anyone could have anticipated. Sarah sat at her desk, going over the evidence once more. She couldn't stop thinking about the journal they had found in the mill. Jack's handwriting had been all over the pages, but the last entry had been the most chilling. "They're coming for me. I don't know if I can survive the change, but I have to. I have no choice." Change. What did Jack mean by that? What had he gotten involved in with Markham? As the investigation progressed, new leads emerged. The more they uncovered, the more Sarah realized that Markham wasn't the only one to blame. There were others involved in Jack's disappearance. But who were they? And what was their ultimate goal? The arrest of Jonathan Markham was just the beginning. While Markham was convicted and sentenced to life without parole, it became clear that there were far more questions than answers. Jack Montgomery's body was never found. His family remained in the dark, desperately clinging to the hope that one day they would have closure. But the public reaction to the case was a mix of fear and fascination. The bizarre circumstances surrounding Jack's disappearance, the eerie mill, the strange transformation Markham had mentioned, and the twisted journals, left people questioning the true nature of the crime. As the story reached national news, other victims began to come forward, claiming to have had similar encounters with Markham and his mysterious network. It seemed as though this wasn't an isolated case at all. The hunt for the full truth was still ongoing. Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of the case pressing down on her. The shadows of the mill, the cold bloodstains, and Markham's cryptic words all seemed to haunt her. She knew that the town would never fully recover from the terror that had been unleashed, and neither would she. This tragic event reminds us that even the safest communities are not immune to the unexpected. There are dark corners in every town, and sometimes the people we least suspect hold the most dangerous secrets. Jack Montgomery's disappearance and the twisted path it led to is a chilling reminder that appearances can be deceiving. It only takes one small decision, one wrong turn, for everything to change forever. As we reflect on Jack's story, we are left with unsettling questions. Who was really behind his disappearance? What did Markham truly mean by the change? And how far would these people go to manipulate and control the lives of others? But perhaps the most important question to ask is this: could something like this happen again? Could someone else fall into the same trap Jack did? What do you think happened to Jack Montgomery? Was he simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or was he pulled into something far more sinister than we can comprehend? And do you think Markham was the only one behind this twisted plot? Or was he just a pawn in a much larger game? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your theories. If you found this story chilling and want to hear more real-life mysteries, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We've got more investigations, more twists, and more shocking truths to uncover. Don't miss out on the next gripping episode of our true crime series. This story serves as a grim reminder of the complexity of human nature. While we go about our everyday lives, there are forces at play that we may never see coming. Just like in Jack Montgomery's case, the truth can often be more unsettling than fiction. Keep your eyes open, because you never know when the shadows might start closing in.